Hi, my soap-obsessed friends. I'm back for another episode of Lattes and Lovestories. Today we will be talking about January 5th of 1984 for Days of Our Lives. This was an interesting one, although all the 80s storylines are super interesting to me, so this series is going to be a lot of fun. Before I get started talking about the episode, I would like to talk about my drink of choice for the day. In here, I have a white chocolate mocha latte with cinnamon syrup. One of my favorite ones. I used to order it at Starbucks all the time. I've started making my coffee at home due to it being so expensive, and I realized that I can make it better at home than what they would make it at Starbucks. But it also helps to have the fancy cups. I'm a fancy cup girl. So today I have the coldest 24 ounce in the snow day design, and it's just gorgeous. The lid locks, so it's 100% leak proof, but it comes up like that, and the lid comes up, and then there's a sip part to it, so you can sip it like you would a to-go cup or like in a mug without a straw. It's my favorite type of thing for coffee. So this is a new one that I got. So that's what I'm working with today while we chat. And then, of course, my water bottle that I showed off last week. So it holds 46 ounces, and this was in the astronaut green glitter color. I love this one too. Also 100% leak proof, as long as you have this pushed all the way down. You can completely tip it upside down, and it doesn't leak. So, I'm promoting these not because I'm getting paid to do it, obviously, but because I just like using them, and maybe one day they'll promote me. Who knows? Or they'll let me promote them, I should say. So, I use these on a daily basis, and it's a little bit of a bad habit, I gotta say. I have several. But I just love pretty cups, apparently. So, it's a fairly new habit, and it sort of replaces my need to get a coffee out daily or any of that sort of thing. So, with that being said, I will sip on my white chocolate mocha, and let's talk about this episode while you guys sip on your own drinks. So the episode starts out with Alex Marshall and Gwen Davies talking in his office when he tells her that someone stole money out of his Swiss bank account. He figured this out when he went to pull out $500,000 to donate money to a charity fund, or not a charity fund, but like a psychiatric unit he wants to open at the hospital. And he wanted to donate a lot of money for it because he wanted Marlena to run it. So he went to pull the money out to do that, and it wasn't there. He realized someone had stolen money and sort of inadvertently, indirectly accused her of doing that. And so next we have Hope and Julie arguing about Doug. This is going to be a very common thing I say in the next several episodes. Julie blames Hope for Doug's heart attack because Doug walked in on Bo and Hope almost having sex. I talked about this last week. My opinion is still the same. He knew what was going to happen when he went there. Julie can blame her all she wants, but in the grand scheme of things, teenagers are going to do what teenagers do. She is now legally an adult. She has the right to do that. Whether he likes it or not. And Julie has no right to accuse her of being the only reason that Doug was sick. Sorry, nothing like that's gonna just randomly cause a heart attack. She's incredibly brutal on her. I understand the stress of it all, but it doesn't make it any different that she constantly blames Hope, when all Hope is trying to do is live her own life. Now, granted, I don't always like the way Hope acts, and that's going to come up later in this episode as I continue talking, but I still stand by the fact that Julie's being way too hard on her for what the situation warrants, and this continues to be a problem for a long while with Julie. I don't really care for the character very much. So, Bo and Roman meet at the warehouse so that Roman can catch Bo up on some of the things that are happening with the case and how he wants to take it, because Anna and Roman are hiding out because they believe that Roman killed several people. He's trying to work to clear his name in those murders, and he believes that Alex Marshall committed them. He thinks that Alex Marshall is framing him, so he wants Bo to help him bug Alex's office so he can get more information. So their conversation in the warehouse in this episode really talks about his plans for Bo to sneak in the tunnels underneath Doug's place and plant a bug outside of Alex's office. Now, this is something I really wanted to mention, and I'll probably end up repeating myself later, but I wanted to say it before I forget, and that is, I really enjoy the way that they used the tunnels. I think several of the soaps around this time used the tunnels. They used it really like a tunnel-based type of thing, like the idea of being able to access tunnels under town to get to several different places unseen. I loved that idea. They used it several times for many years, and I just absolutely love it. I think it's a cool little detail. They had access to the tunnels from several different places throughout the town, so depending on what they needed or where in the tunnels they needed to get to, they used the different places. The one that they used the most was the entrance under Doug's place. It was a wine cellar. So you go through the wine cellar, and then there's like a secret spot that you go through and you can get to the tunnels. They used that several times. There was also a place to get in the tunnels from under Eugene Bradford's house that they used many times as well. But this time, Bo's gonna use it to sneak outside of a secret room in Alex's house to get to, like, there's a secret room adjacent to his office that he's gonna place the bug on the wall to hear the conversations, and then Roman can monitor it from the secret place they're hiding in the library. This happens in this episode. He plants the bug. So they're speaking in the warehouse about how to do that, the best way to do that. And then Roman talks to Bo about how he's not quite acting like himself, and he's asking what's wrong. And Bo just tells him what happened the previous night, that, Doug walked in on Bo and Hope almost having sex, and that he feels guilty for his part in it, and that he thinks that Hope and him being together might cause more harm than good, because he finally allowed himself to admit how he feels, and it backfired. And he's feeling like he needs to avoid Hope because it's the best thing to do, even though Hope is wanting him around for comfort and to spend more time with him, and that she needs him right now. She feels like she needs, his support. And so he's staying away out of guilt, and I get it, but again, they're adults, and they need to make their own decisions, and I understand that Doug would be upset enough that Hope would need to stay away from his hospital room, which is something that they have set into place. She's not allowed to see him, she's not allowed to talk to him. And at this point, given how upset he is, I understand that. And given how risky his condition is, it's also something to consider. But to blame them for the fact that he had a heart attack at all is not fair. And I've watched this storyline several times over the years. I got my hands on it when I was 16, and I'm in my 20s. So, that being said, a lot of my opinions on these storylines and storylines from different shows as well have changed as I've gotten older. That one never does. I still think Julie's kind of being a little bit of a bitch, and that it's sort of dramatic. Yes, sometimes fathers have issues with their daughters growing up, but it's a fact of life. And I hate to say it, but I feel like, especially back then, teenagers grew up a lot faster than they do now, in different ways than they do now. I shouldn't say faster, but in different ways. And so, that being said, like, it was more common for Hope to have been making those decisions for herself by that age, and he kind of needed to let her take the reins on her own life in more ways than one. Also, let's see. Alex meets Marlena for dinner, and they talk about his idea for the psychiatric unit at the hospital, and that he wants her to run it. I'm not sure, because I'm picking up in 1984. There's some context in 1983 that sort of needed to be said here. I've watched it before, but very small bits and pieces of it, and therefore I'm missing some context. I'm not 100% sure why he wanted a psychiatric unit and why he wanted her to run it. I have friends that they would be like, well, this is why. But I personally don't know. That being said, he asks her to run the unit. She says that she thinks that's a good idea. But she's hesitant given the fact that the money that he would be putting up for the unit was Stefano's money once upon a time. And since Stefano's dead, it's Alex's money now, and that's the money he'd be using for the unit, and she didn't want to be involved with it being blood money. Alex said that even though it was blood money, that they should basically let it do a good thing for people that need it. So that convinced her to then agree to run the unit. Alex said he was going to put up, I know I said $500,000 earlier. I was wrong. It was $1 million. He was going to put up $1 million to, like, start the unit. But he said that $1 million doesn't go as far as it needs to, so that they'd have to do, like, some sort of fundraiser. And then he gets up from the table, and Tony walks in. Count Tony DeMira. If you guys have watched it anywhere in the last 10 years, Tony DeMira, hell, in the last several, like 40 years, he's sort of been a main character on and off. But Tony is Count DeMira, and he's the nephew of Stefano DeMira. Now, you'll know if you've watched it in any sort of recent capacity that Tony is his son. That changed. He used to be his nephew. So that's an important little detail for those of you who weren't really watching it at the time. I know that it's not that way anymore, but he was his nephew at the time. So Alex gets up, walks to Tony, and basically says that it was Marlena's idea that they, like, figurehead the fundraiser together, and then explains what it's for, and says that he would love him to drop a few $1 million on it. Alex walks away, Tony goes to sit at the table, and Marlena and Tony talk. Now, in my notes I wrote that they had dinner, but then I wrote that they had dinner again, so I don't know if they had two dinners or if they were just happening to be talking over drinks, but they were at Blondie's. And then they ended up having dinner again. So we're just gonna go with they had drinks when they were there, and that they had dinner later. I don't know. But they end up talking, and Marlena was like, that's a great idea. You should co-chair the fundraiser with me, and donate any amount of money that you want. Marlene and Tony were friends. She saw her relationship with him as separate than Stefano because they were very different people at the time. Tony was the good one. Tony had the good heart. He was pure and kind and wanted to do what was best for everybody, and everybody loved Tony. So it was very different then. And maybe some of you are coming into this listening to me talk and you've never seen the show before, or you've only seen a certain time period. So that's why, even though I'm trying to stay only in the timeline of these episodes as they come, there are details that I have to explain that could have changed or have changed. Like the fact that at the time he was his nephew and now he's his son. That can come off as very confusing to people. So then we see the argument between Hope and Julie continues. And Maggie walks in and tries to break it up because she's afraid that one or both of them is going to say something that the other one can't take back. It's a very stressful time. She's Julie's friend, but she cares about Hope because they're family, and she just wants to make sure that everyone's okay. So she tries to sort of break it up. She tells Julie to go up to get some rest. She leaves dinner that she had cooked for them in the kitchen, and then she leaves. Hope then picks up the phone to call Doug's room, which is against the rules. She shouldn't be in touch with him at all. No phone calls, no visits, no nothing. Until he gets healed enough to deal with the stress of the situation. And Julie comes walking down because she wanted to get something, I think a cup of tea, and sees Hope making the call. Overhears what she was saying, which was that she wanted to be transferred to her father's hospital room. So she comes down and says, "You absolutely will not," makes her hang up the phone, and the argument continues. She tells Hope how selfish she is and how oblivious she is to how her father feels about everything, and how she obviously doesn't care about his well-being, and all she cares about is Beau. And Hope explains that it wasn't that she only cared about Beau, she cared about her father as well, and that she just wanted him to understand that she loved both of them and didn't want to lose either one. So then we see Beau and Roman back at the warehouse as they pretend to be like moving and packing boxes for shipment of some kind. They pretend to be employees so that they blend in. And they end up almost being found out, so they create a diversion and they run the other way. There's like the fake argument they stage and they run. Roman goes back to the library where he's hiding, and Beau goes to Doug's place to get to the secret part of the tunnel. Hope goes upstairs. She'd come back downstairs at some point after the argument with Julie, and she ends up going back upstairs after a conversation with Larry about how he wanted to spend time with her and make sure that she was okay through all of this, which he seems so innocent and kind and like he wants to do the right thing, but we as viewers know that all he's doing is taking advantage of her because he wants her money. Like, he wants her money for his campaign to become like the next step in his career, because he eventually wants to be president one day, which is something that keeps coming up in conversation as the show progresses. But anyway, he's just getting close to her because she came into a very large sum of money. She got an inheritance from her mother's will when she turned 18 the other day. So the remaining portion of the money that hadn't been paid out from the time that she was coming of age is now hers, and it's several $1,000s. and she's flaunting it around. So everybody knows that she got this inheritance, and he's trying to get her to love him so that it can become his money as well. So he's kind of slimy and, tries to spend as much time with her and pretend to be as supportive as humanly possible type of thing. She tells him that she just wants to spend the night alone and that she feels like she just wants to think. So he leaves her alone, and him and Gwen end up having dinner, and Bo sneaks into the tunnel without Hope seeing him, and he plants the bug at Alex Marshall's office. He overhears like Gwen and Alex talking about some missing money or something, I think, and then he leaves the bug there and goes back upstairs. When he gets back upstairs, Hope comes back down again and sees him and gets all excited and like throws her arms around him and says how much she needed him and why hasn't he been responding. And when she calls him, and he tells her that he had also been trying to call her, but that she wasn't answering. And he didn't want to call the hospital and maybe be overheard by Julie and upset her. So they share a hug and tell each other how much they miss each other, and he asks her how Doug is doing, and then Julie comes downstairs because they live above Doug's place. When Julie comes downstairs, she makes a comment about how of course they would be together because they're selfish enough to do so, and then asks them both to come upstairs for a conversation. Which her version of a conversation is just yelling and saying that they don't need to be together and shouldn't be together and that they're both selfish people, and that Bo will never love Hope the way that Hope thinks he will because Bo is too selfish to love someone the way that, people should love each other. And then he's basically just using her. Clearly, no one really knew Bo because, yes, he was the bad boy, but only in image sense. He would never have purposefully hurt anybody. So there's this huge, argument that ensues, and he runs out because he feels so guilty about what happened that he was just like, well, she's right, maybe we shouldn't be spending time together. You really need to think about it. And then he leaves, and then Hope's really upset and goes running upstairs, and Julie's left in the room alone. Upstairs in her bedroom. They have a 2-story penthouse above See, this is so long ago, and I wasn't alive during any of this. So it's constantly astounding to me that these people had, large apartments or penthouses or anything above businesses. Because, I know there are a few in places. We still have small, units or apartments upstairs above certain places. But, this seemed so much more common back then, and I just think it's so interesting and so cool, and I sort of wish I had been alive for that. I'm really nostalgic for that time period, the 80s, the 90s. I always have been very nostalgic for it. In a way that I think that's why I'm so drawn to these shows in general. But that's how that episode ended. So, as a quick recap, Bo and Roman met at the warehouse to be updated on the plan. Bo snuck in the tunnels and planted the bug in Alex Marshall's, the wall outside of Alex Marshall's secret room. Bo and Hope saw each other, and Julie asked him to stay away. And Larry's his normal slimy self. I also forgot that Tony and Marlena were having dinner, whatever, Gwen made an interesting comment about how she respected Marlena for, loving Roman the way that she did, and she hoped that one day that someone would love her like that. Which, that's kind of important to, as you watch her character move through the storylines in the next couple of years. because it's like, I think all she really wanted was to be loved by the right person in the right way. And then also Tony ended up taking Marlena home to his penthouse, and having his chef cook her dinner, and they continued talking about what they wanted to do for the fundraiser. They wanted to be a concert. They want to get some big names there to draw people's interest. And then Carrie gets brought up, which Carrie is Roman and Anna's daughter. Tony was married to Anna, and Marlena is married to Roman, so they were both step parents. So she gets brought up because she had just broken her arm or something, like a month prior to this. And they're talking about her, and then how much she misses Roman and Anna, and how much Marlena is trying to get her to, like, be okay without them, even though it's hard to be for a little girl. She's like 4 or 5, I think, at this point. It's really hard for her to be without her parents, but really wants to spend time with Tony, which is why that got brought up. Tony continues to act a little strange, like out of character, and then he takes phone calls out of Marlena's earshot and talks to Delia, which is his, I'd say like his maid. She's posing as his maid. Not quite his maid, but it's not really Tony either, and that'll come up later. And so he's acting strange and wanting to keep her there, and like wanting to keep her interest, and Delia's doing some stuff behind the scenes that we're not quite privy to yet. But this whole Tony thing is very interesting to me because, I can't say yet, but it's just very interesting to me, and you'll have to stay tuned to hear more about that, because it's one of my favorite storylines in the 80s, was where they ended up taking this. My overall opinions on the show. This episode in particular. I'm not gonna, overall opinions on the series. We're just talking about this episode. Julie continues to piss me off. This is only the second time I've done a video like this. There are going to be many. Probably in the next 2 years of episodes that I'll cover, that'll probably be the top thing I always say. Julie pisses me off. I'd really love to hear, for those of you that like Julie, because I know there are a few, what about her did you like? And if you like her as a character long term, did you like her during this period? Did you maybe understand where she was coming from and maybe not agree with Bo and Hope? Because that would be very interesting to me. I'm watching this as a younger person. I'm watching this having watched the majority of the show from start to finish now, minus some of the later years in the 90s that I wasn't really a big fan of. So I have a different viewpoint than maybe someone who was watching it live at the time. So I'd really, really love to hear what you guys think about any of this, but really about Julie, because, I struggle with her. Doug, not so much. I think he blows things out of proportion, but he has a good heart. Julie, I believe, blows things out of proportion, but she's just really annoying, as a rule. I think Bo should be honest with Hope about Roman, and his helping Roman will start to interfere with Hope. And so that really comes from my knowledge of the later storylines. And I know I said I wasn't going to do that, but it's really hard not to. So hang in there with me. Tony is very interesting to me. I really, really enjoyed, every time I've watched this, I've enjoyed Tony. And I think I will continue to do so. And then, like I said, closer to the beginning of the video, I really, really like the tunnels. I think it's something that we miss in current soaps today that I wish that we had, was like the tunnels and the mysteriousness of some of the storylines and the on-location shoots, which won't really come into play yet, but will in a few more months, as this starts to progress. But I just love the 80s. I love this show in the 80s. I think it was the best that they ever did. And I just hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do, because I'd really love us to kind of enjoy this journey together a little bit. I know you guys are just watching me. Excuse me, my phone was ringing. I know you guys are just watching me talk about it. Whereas, I'm watching it, so it's a little bit of a different experience for you guys as it is for me. But I hope you enjoy, going down memory lane with me a little bit. And, for those of you that would like to watch along, I'm gonna start doing what I'd like to refer to as a streaming service. If anyone's interested, I'd really love if you guys would join. It's $10 a month for Days of Our Lives. So my entire collection of Days of Our Lives would be available for you for $10 a month. You would gain a mega link. The mega link would allow you access to all of my episodes. You can watch them at any time. The only thing that you would have to do is then re-up at the end of next month. I accept payment on PayPal. So, if that's something you're interested in, leave a comment with your email address and I can reach out to you. Or if you'd like to reach out to me, my email is catsoapshop@gmail.com. I'll try to leave that in the description of this video. If you're interested, please email me. I'd love to hear from you. I would love to post all of the episodes for free, but many of us have tried it and it's just not feasible because they get taken down for copyright. This way, you guys can still enjoy it for a small fee and it won't get taken down due to copyright. So it's a win-win for everybody. But please, if you're interested, I'd love to see more interest. So, alright guys. Please comment. I love your comments. I'd love to hear what you guys think of these videos. And I'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye.